I don't have a car or even a driving license, and yet I live in a place like this. How do I even manage? Well, as it turns out, I'm very fortunate. Even though I do live in a very rural area, it is an area that gets public transport right. Unfortunately, I can't say the same about most of rural Germany. Normally, a place like this will be lucky to get maybe 2 buses a day. I mean, after all, with so few people available to actually use the buses, it would be uneconomical to run any more than that, right? Well, that may be the wrong way of thinking about it. If people aren't using the buses, it may be because there aren't enough buses to make it a viable option. So let me show you how I get to Aschaffenburg, which is where people around here go for shopping and leisure, and is also a local administrative centre. It's where I had to go when I applied for German citizenship.
It's a short walk to the bus stop, but here's the best bit. The bus goes every hour at 9 minutes to the hour, and that's all I have to remember. I don't have to memorise an entire timetable, just be at the bus stop 9 minutes to the hour.
Now, if you're used to a bus every 5 minutes, having just one an hour may seem impossibly inconvenient. Conventional wisdom has it that in a place like this, what you really need is an on-demand service that you can book to pick you up whenever you want. But I don't really agree with that. First of all, it's an extra step, another thing that you have to do. You have to phone or use an app to book a journey beforehand. And second, in all the schemes that I've seen so far, you have to book something like half an hour in advance, which really doesn't give you that much of an advantage. A regular timetable is very easy to plan around, and that's really the technique here. Once you've got used to it, it becomes second nature. Also, you may have noticed that the bus looks strangely comfortable, more like a long-distance coach. That's because the bus operator also does coach tours and subcontracts some services to local coach companies. So you're looking at a vehicle that does coach tours at the weekends but operates as a bus on weekdays when demand is higher. In this way, the bus company can keep its fleet relatively small and earn a bit of extra money doing coach tours, and other coach tour companies can also make a little bit of extra money running bus services and not have their fleets just uselessly parked 5 days out of every 7. Everybody wins.
So this is the central hub for all the local public transport. The train and the buses come in at a few minutes before the hour and then leave again a few minutes past the hour.
Alright, it doesn't work like that for every bus every hour of the day, but that is the general principle. And while they may not be heavily used, running services out to the tiny little villages means more passengers for the train to Hanau and the buses to Aschaffenburg and Gelnhausen. I'm on the limited stop express bus, which takes about half an hour to get into Aschaffenburg. Now, as it happens on this particular journey, there were almost no passengers at all, but normally the bus is at least half full and frequently more than that. And it's in addition to a slightly slower bus that stops more frequently. So there are actually 2 buses an hour to Aschaffenburg. And here's the thing, the express bus was only introduced a few years ago. Before then, there was only the slow bus, 1 bus an hour to Aschaffenburg, and it was quite well used. Now there are 2, and they are both equally well used, except when I want to film them to show you how well used they are, but you know, that's life. Which is a perfect illustration of the principle of build it and they will come. Make the buses convenient and easy to use, and more people will use them.
So the bus has very kindly dropped me off at this shopping centre, which is very convenient, but I could have stayed on it all the way to the station for connections to the trains and also to the bus station with buses all over the city.
It is true that a car would get me to Aschaffenburg quicker, but then I would have to find and pay for a parking space once I'd fought my way through traffic with the buses whizzing past me on the bus lane. And there are people who can't drive. Think not just about people like me, but old people who are no longer fit to drive, young people who haven't taken their tests yet, the sight impaired, even people who have been banned from driving. And of course, if you've just washed your lunch down with a couple of beers, you probably shouldn't drive for a bit, but you can get on the bus without a second thought. And while you're on the bus, you can check your emails, play a game, or just zone out, which would be really dangerous if you were driving. As I said, rural areas in Germany are usually very poorly served by public transport, and sadly, my area is not typical. But with all the talk there is at the moment of the need for a transport revolution, I'm here to tell you that even in rural areas, this can be done without the need to completely reinvent the whole concept of public transport.